In this podcast episode, Joe Rogan hosts cognitive neuroscientist and computer scientist Julia Mossbridge to explore a diverse range of topics, including psychic phenomena, precognition, the science behind exceptional human performance, the limits of scientific orthodoxy, government programs related to gifted children, and psychic research, quantum mechanics, consciousness, and cultural shifts around openness to unconventional ideas. Their wide-ranging conversation delves into Julia's personal experiences, scientific investigations, cultural observations, and philosophical perspectives on the nature of time, mind, and human potential. Julia Mossbridge opens by sharing her scientific training in cognitive neuroscience and computer science, alongside her work in artificial intelligence. She became fascinated with how the human brain perceives and processes time, particularly phenomena like precognition, knowing future events through means not explained by conventional science. Julia's interest extends to what is termed exceptional human performance, which she contends is not so exceptional, but rather dormant capacities inherent in many people. Her goal is to develop practical applications based on these capabilities once cultural stigma against such topics diminishes. Julia candidly discusses the tension between her scientific training and her research into often marginalized subjects like psychic abilities. While her experiments have repeatedly shown statistically significant evidence of precognition and related effects, mainstream science frequently ignores or suppresses this work due to entrenched skepticism, political pressures, and fear of being labeled foolish. She shares frustrations with academic gatekeeping, the slow pace of institutional research, and how publishing certain papers can be blocked in databases like Google Scholar. Despite this, Julia emphasizes her determination to build real-world technologies leveraging these phenomena rather than purely academic inquiry. Joe and Julia reflect on how cultural attitudes around topics such as psychic phenomena, UFOs, and exceptional human abilities are evolving. The internet has played a key role in democratizing information and enabling wider conversations outside traditional academic and media gatekeepers. Joe highlights the importance of intellectual humility and emotional openness amid polarization, cancel culture, and the need to win debates in both political left and right. Julia notes how the stigma surrounding topics like precognition or Bigfoot often leads to dismissive laughter, but openness is increasing, especially as more scientists and public figures discuss these subjects courageously. The conversation turns toward the role of ego and how many academics and experts prioritize winning arguments and proving superiority over genuine inquiry. They criticize the performative nature of intellectual dominance and how this can suppress curiosity and authentic dialogue. Both emphasize the importance of listening as a humble, genuinely curious practice that transcends gender stereotypes, despite cultural conditioning. Julia discusses how martial arts and other challenging disciplines foster humility through repeated humiliation, teaching practitioners to objectively assess themselves without ego interference. Julia traces her personal experiences with precognition back to childhood, recalling a vivid dream at age 7 accurately predicting a friend losing her watch. While her parents responded differently, her mother encouraging dream journaling and her physicist father dismissing it as coincidence, she experienced other strange phenomena in her home, including ball lightning. Julia reflects on the conflicting approaches within her family, with her mother placing priority on lived experience and her father insisting phenomena must fit existing theories. This duality shaped her cautious but persistent exploration of anomalous cognitive capacities. Despite ongoing paranormal experiences, Julia initially masked her interests to fit conventional science pathways. During graduate school, she concentrated on timing in auditory and visual systems, but eventually re-engaged with psychic research, particularly precognition. She describes cold calling established scientists working in parapsychology, gaining a postdoctoral mentor willing to support her investigations. With funding from European scientific foundations, she conducted experiments measuring physiological correlates of presentiment, body responses to future stimuli, including detailed analyses revealing gender differences in anticipatory skin conductance and heartbeat patterns. Julia and Joe discuss observed physiological sex differences in psychic experiments, such as men showing more pronounced anticipatory responses in competitive guessing tasks compared to women. Julia suggests these differences may be culturally influenced or biologically rooted, possibly tracing back to chimpanzee-like tribal behaviors where winning equated to survival. They note that while some tasks evoke gender-specific responses, others reveal more universal effects, emphasizing the complex interplay of biology and culture in shaping human capacities. The conversation explores the relationship between language development and psychic capacity, with Julia positing that language acts as both a technology for precise communication and a filter that dampens more subtle, telepathic forms of awareness. They discuss intriguing neurological findings, such as stroke patients with damage to left frontal brain regions showing enhanced psychic-like abilities, possibly due to disinhibition of right hemisphere processes. Julia hypothesizes that non-speaking autistic individuals may have freer access to such capacities, supported by her work with nonverbal spellers who demonstrate remarkable telepathic and precognitive communications through letterboards. Julia describes collaborative research involving non-speaking autistic participants who communicate complex and sometimes verifiable information telepathically or precognitively. In rigorous controlled settings, these individuals successfully identify video content unseen by their communicators, coordinate amongst themselves through apparently telepathic exchanges, and relay knowledge unknown to their caregivers. Examples include accurate description of obscure visual patterns, identifying medical information, and spontaneous use of archaic or poetic language unknown to present interlocutors. These findings challenge conventional assumptions about cognition and communication, suggesting untapped realms of consciousness. Julia and Joe delve into philosophical territory, considering consciousness as distinct from the physical brain and possibly linked to an informational substrate permeating reality. They discuss ideas such as the Akashic records, cosmic repositories of all past, present, and potential future information, and posit that psychic phenomena arise from access to such a timeless field. They contemplate the soul as an entity capable of inserting and retrieving information from this substrate, blurring boundaries between mind, matter, and time. Julia shares personal insights into her own internal voice, which she experiences as a corrective and guiding presence akin to a guardian angel. The discussion moves to quantum physics, particularly the double-slit experiment's paradoxical behavior of particles exhibiting wave-like interference even as single quanta. Julia presents her research showing how future decisions about the duration of a photon experiment can influence the observed interference pattern retroactively, suggesting a loop of information extending backward and forward through time. Retrocausality. They consider bosonic particles like photons as possible bridges between mind and matter, given their unique properties of being in multiple places simultaneously, and their involvement in quantum coherence mechanisms demonstrated in biological systems such as photosynthesis. This challenges standard quantum computing approaches that rely on cooled isolated particles, proposing more naturalistic models incorporating time loops and collective phenomena. Julia addresses cultural fascination with extraterrestrials, UFOs, and government secrecy, noting that while alien disclosure is anticipated, it pales in significance compared to individual inner revelation and the cultivation of personal truth. She discusses her book as an invitation for readers to explore their own experiences rather than await external validation. The conversation touches on the use of psychic research by intelligence agencies, historic government programs experimenting on gifted children, often without consent, and secretive efforts to reverse engineer advanced technologies possibly derived from extraterrestrial sources. Julia critiques unethical aspects of these programs while emphasizing the importance of forgiveness and healing. Julia shares difficult memories involving amnesic episodes linked to her participation in gifted programs and interactions with defense contractors. She recalls being given mysterious pink drinks and experiencing lost time without parental consent, situating these within broader documented abuses such as MK-Ultra-style experimentation. She postulates connections between her family's exposure to uranium mining and nuclear facilities and government interest in cognitive effects of radiation. Despite the trauma, Julia frames her journey toward understanding and healing through applied love, forgiveness, and scientific exploration that embraces both mind and heart. Julia discusses her nonprofit, Applied Love Labs, which creates tools to promote self-love and healing through temporal journaling techniques. Their Time Machine app allows people to record messages to their future selves, fostering self-acknowledgement and positive change over time. Used by veterans, incarcerated individuals, and indigenous groups, this practice helps clients extend compassion toward themselves and others, facilitating transformative shifts in perspective grounded in unconditional love. This integration of science, spirituality, and technology embodies Julia's commitment to practical outcomes based on her research. Joe and Julia explore how ideas and creativity emerge seemingly from intangible sources, likening the muse to a life form or force that inspires invention and art. They discuss the importance of presence and flow in creative arts like comedy and how audiences subconsciously detect authenticity or distraction. Both emphasize the necessity of overcoming ego, getting out of your own way, and embracing vulnerability to access the deeper currents of inspiration. This aligns with their themes of inner space exploration, consciousness expansion, and transcending conventional limitations. Throughout their dialogue, Julia repeatedly highlights the deepening interplay between physics and consciousness. She references books like How the Hippies Saved Physics, which chronicles paradigm shifts fueled by expanded awareness and psychedelic insights. She accentuates that deeper scientific inquiry inevitably intersects with the nature of mind itself, suggesting that reality is more mental and informational than purely material. This framework underpins her investigations into retrocausality, psychic abilities, nonverbal cognition, and even the technological prospects of quantum computing. Toward the end, Julia expresses eagerness to further discuss her experiences teaching and experimenting with remote viewing, a psychic technique involving spatial and temporal perception beyond ordinary senses, as well as other facets of cognitive neuroscience and anomalous experience. Joe echoes enthusiasm for continued dialogue, acknowledging the depth and breadth of material covered in this episode and the potential for multiple follow-up discussions to unpack these complex and often misunderstood phenomena.